Football isn't like most sports. It's a very arbitrary sport in the sense that there isn't a handful of metrics that you can use to determine who is the best football player in the world, because there's tons of them. And that being said, there is one thing that spurs a huge amount of debate in football. Well, not football, sports in general. Well, actually not even sports, anime as well. Power scaling. Discussions on which footballer is better, Messi or Ronaldo, Mbappe or Haaland, Jude or Pedri, Rice or Caicedo. Point is, most casuals just say stuff nowadays and their only counter argument is zero ball knowledge. In my opinion, if you can't explain why you think this footballer is better than that footballer, then your opinion isn't valid. That's why I've come to you guys to explain what makes a footballer good. Yeah, we getting cinematic in this bit. Sorry. I feel like before you can even get to judging players, you have to understand the game and ask yourself, what is your footballing philosophy? How do you see the game? Because I'll tell you how most people today see the game. They're always influenced by the style of football they grew up with, like tiki-taka, because that Barcelona team was just so dominant with their whole brand being good in tight spaces. We rate any footballer that can maneuver their way in tight spaces as superior to others. Terms like pure footballing ability are being thrown around to validate certain players. And I'm not gonna lie, there are footballers that I felt whose careers have been underrated because of this school of thought. N'Golo Kante being one of them.
Yeah, so listen, N'Golo Kante literally box.
Imagine having a midfielder that was so good defensively, could tackle anybody running at him, cut out passing lanes, covered every single blade of grass, and carried the ball like there was no tomorrow. Do you understand how valuable a player like that is? Or how it allows the other two midfielders to be very attacking oriented? Or another example, Kevin De Bruyne. He doesn't get enough hype as he should be because he's an attacking midfielder that isn't good in tight spaces. In the eyes of the modern football fan, his lack of pure footballing ability overshadows his ability to win you games single-handedly. This guy is the best chance creator ever and one of the best shooters of a football ever. But that's kind of what I'm saying, like people don't really develop their footballing philosophies on their own. Your footballing philosophy is basically what do you find the most important in a player and who do you think are the most important players on the pitch. I don't know about you, but for me, attackers have always been the most important position in football. Let me tell you about Blue Lock. Blue Lock is a football anime where 300 under-18 strikers in Japan are selected to try out for the under-20s. Only 5 out of the 300 are selected, and the rest are banned from playing for the national team. Halfway through, the goal changes from selecting 5 to creating a roster to play against the under-20s to settle a dispute between the coach Ego and the JFA board, whether the project should continue or not. This means Blue Lock is essentially a team completely made up of strikers. Ultimately, the main message of the show is that goals are the most important thing in football. The same is seen with other academies across the world. For example, the England national team were asked what their first position was, and damn near everyone, bar the goalkeepers, and Harry Kane, said either striker or winger.
Striker. 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 Winger. Striker. Left winger. Striker. The right winger, I think. Centre forward. Number 9. Striker. Left wing. Striker. Left wing. Striker. Right wing.
The front four, centre forward, left winger, right winger, and cam require some sort of genius to play there. It's like Michael Owen said.
It's easier to spoil in many ways than to create, isn't it?
You asked me to build this house, I won't be able to do it.
But give me a few weeks, I'll be able to knock it down.
Goalkeepers, yeah, that's good, just keep doing your job. Center backs, yeah, all tight you lot. Fullbacks, unless you're a generational talent like Trent, Marcelo, or Numish, I ain't trying to hear it. CDM and CM low-key got some. Like Xavi with his chance creation, I'm pretty sure one season he even got 30 assists. So for me, the most important thing a player can have is their ability to create goals. But hey, that don't mean center backs are out of the picture. This is why Sergio Ramos is regarded as one of the best defenders ever, because he's one of the biggest set piece threats ever. Van Dijk as well, or even Ronald Koeman, who I don't think gets enough credit. Or if you're a CDM, you could win your team matches with a last minute absolute bomb from range, like Rodri. I put goal creation into 4 attributes that I think sum it up perfectly. Chance creation, shot creation, shooting, and off-ball movement. Let's talk about chance creation. The best chance creators are the ones that can produce the best goal-scoring opportunities from any part of the pitch, like Kevin De Bruyne primarily, or even more recently, Lamine Yamal. It's basically the quality of your crossing, your through balls, you know, something similar to that. Shot creation is your 1v1s and tight space dribbling. And when I say 1v1s, I don't mean you necessarily have to blow by a defender to be considered a world-class 1v1 player. It could just be a means to create space, like Arjen Robben. When he cuts inside, he isn't inherently blowing passes, man. He's just creating space. Same thing with Saka. He's a great 1v1 player even though he doesn't inherently beat his men. It's about creating space at the end of the day. Shooting is also very broad because it could be your ability to score from headers, finishing inside the box, or like you're shooting from range. Similarly with off-ball movement, it could be striker's instincts, your pace of running in behind, or knowing when to crash the box. But these attributes are not made equally, so we gotta order them in terms of importance. For me, space creation is the most important attribute because really think about the GOATs throughout football history. The 2010s had Messi, the 2000s had Dino, the 90s had R9, the 80s had Maradona, the 70s had Cruyff, the 60s had Pele. What did they all have in common? These guys were able to dribble past 4 or 5 mans. I've always believed that a person who can break down a defensive system by themselves is the most important individual trait in football. Now, there is a difference between tight space dribbling and just players who are good in tight spaces. One's about actually progressing the ball, while the other is just about keeping it. Iniesta, Musiala, and Turkey are good tight space dribblers, but Foden, Vitinha, and Pedri are just good in tight spaces. I mean, if you're talking about individual quality, then you kind of have to talk about the most individual trait. Speaking of individual traits, the next one is a tier below it, shooting. At the end of the day, it's like Pep said.
You don't like to touch balls? So I love it.
Oh wait, wrong clip.
You have to score those guys.
It is the final action of the ball going into the net, so naturally it would be one of the most important things. Furthermore, someone with incredible ball striking, like tight space dribbling, is essential to breaking down a low block because that's their weakness. When all else fails, just shoot and pray. I consider chance creation to be on the same level as shooting because whilst it doesn't solely rely on individual quality, but also the movement of your teammates, it's also what all the geniuses in football history were great at. Even throughout history, the goal scorers never really got as much praise as the creators. The least important amongst the four is off-ball movement because, well, I mean, it just isn't as important as the others because, well, let's be real. You can really only make an impact when you're on the ball. Yeah, but what is off-ball movements if you aren't getting service? You could argue running the channels, like to draw defenders, but that's like basic elementary stuff that everyone's expected to do. I shouldn't really have to explain this. Not every attacker requires all four. For example, Haaland being a striker that makes runs and behinds, occasionally dropping deep to link up play, does not need to worry about chance creation, okay? He is the final product. Likewise, Kevin De Bruyne's game does not require making runs and behind. Okay, so now that we've covered goal creation or your final third work, the next important thing is actually getting into the final third, ball progression. Basically the act of bringing up the ball from the build-up phase to the final third. This consists of ball carrying, long balls, link-up play, and line-breaking passes. Ball carrying is by far the most important of these four because, guess why? It's the one that solely relies on the individual. I'm sure you're starting to realize a pattern here. Ball carrying is kind of similar to shot creation because both are forms of dribbling, except with ball carrying it relies much more on pace and power, whilst tight space dribbling relies much more on trickery and agility. Long balls are the next important ones because they are the quickest form of ball progression. Then I'd say link-up play and line-breaking passes are the same. Line-breaking passes require more skill and vision, but they usually happen much deeper and aren't as progressive as link-up play. Link-up play for you men confused is basically like playing 1-2s to progress the ball, or tiki-taka for lack of a better term. And line-breaking passes as well, passes that break the defensive line, like a through ball, but it happens much deeper in the pitch. These are the two main categories that I think are important for a striker: goal creation and ball progression. But what about defenders? Well, to be honest guys, I really thought about it, and in the defensive side of the game, more specifically the ability to stop goals, I can only think of three: containing, recovery, and tackling. Containing being your defensive positioning and how that prevents attackers to get past you. For me, the best pure defenders in history, like Van Dijk, Maldini, and Nesta, are the ones that don't have to go to ground as much. Thus, that is your most important defensive trait. Tackling is essentially your tackling technique. How clean is your tackle? When you challenge the ball, are you winning it more times than you aren't? And when you do win it, are you fouling more times than you aren't? And then recovery is like your ability to sprint back on D. When there's a fast break or next man has blown past you, it goes containing first, recovery second, and tackling third in terms of importance. Why? Just think about it logically. As a defender, your first objective is to make sure the attacker doesn't go past you. You achieve that by containing. If that fails, then you need to be able to recover to get back in front of him. If that fails, then you need to put in a tackle. People use tackles, blocks, and interceptions to judge how good a defender is, but really the best defenders are the ones that rarely make mistakes. Finally, we get to the last part, which is also important, but in football nowadays, the ability to control games is key to winning football matches, and by that I mean winning the midfield battle. Making sure you're able to keep control of the ball in the midfield is so important. So the corresponding attributes to this category would be ball retention, duel winning, and defensive positioning. Ball retention is a weird one because there are really two angles you can look from it. I'll tell you this, the two of the best ever players I've seen in this regard is Pedri and Drogba. Now I know what you're thinking, two completely different players, how could they... Just let me take it from here. Drogba was one of the best ever at hold-up play, which is just keeping possession with your physical prowess. and Pedri is one of the best ever at being press resistant, which is just keeping possession with quick thinking and agility. So basically, if you're a striker, we'll judge based on hold-up play. If you're a midfielder, then we'll judge based on press resistance. Duel winning has always been important, but nowadays, it is the most important part of the game. We are seeing a great shift in football, with Pep Guardiola fading into the background and Mikel Arteta coming into prominence. Nowadays, football is played with the ball in the air most of the time, starting kickoff by booting the ball long or even flicking it up and volleying it into the final third. Throw-ins have basically become set pieces, and set piece tactics are looking like NFL plays. Play 42 set hut as set piece. You need players that can win those aerial duels and ground duels. Side tangent, but this is why the classic 10 is kind of dying in today's day and age. Having a small creative player like Ozil, James, Eriksen in the middle of the pitch means sacrificing strength in the midfield. Like 10s nowadays are either great duel winners and ball progressors like Jude, box crashers like Firmino and Enzo, or the only exception is if you have a chance creation monster like Chergi or Bruno. Yeah, you have players who play like classic 10s like Palmer, Musiala, and Wirtz, but those guys are best used pushed out wide and drifting in. Anyways, duels. Yeah, they could be winning headers when crosses fly into the box, winning 50-50s, or winning long balls in the middle of the park. And defensive positioning is just making sure you're in position to cut out a pass, or you're in position to press players once they receive the ball. It isn't just being at the right place at the right time without having to run like Busquets, but also being able to cover a lot of ground like Kante. If you think about it, when you have the ball, you need to keep it. When the other team has the ball, you need to be in position to win it back. And when neither of you have the ball, you need to get to the ball before the other team does. Therefore, I'd say all are equal in midfield. So there we have it, my footballing philosophy, and the main attributes I look at when judging players. This brings up another dilemma, that there is a difference when comparing footballers as players versus comparing them with respect to their position. When comparing footballers as midfielders, obviously I'm going to value ball progression and the midfield battle more than goal creation. Like for example, I think Busquets is a better defensive midfielder than Rodri, but I think Rodri is a better player because he offers more going forward. Busquets is the better defender and more press resistance, two of the most important qualities as a DM. But Rodri is the better ball carrier, has a better passing range, better chance creator, better shooter, especially considering his box crashing ability. Another case, Reece James and Trent. Reece James is the better fullback because he's a better defender than Trent, but Trent is a better player because of how crazy his chance creation and ball progression is. I hope you can understand what I mean by this. And with that being said, that is how I judge footballers. To recap, I've divided footballing ability into 4 categories: goal creation, ball progression, defensive work, and the midfield battle. Each of these categories have these subcategories listed in an order of importance as follows. Also, the other purpose of this video was to soft launch a new series on the channel. How good was he? We're using this format I explained. We'll be looking at players' current and past to determine how good were they as footballers. I highly recommend you join me on this journey if you want to improve your ball knowledge and understand why certain footballers are incredible and why others are, well, overrated. I hope you enjoyed this vid, and with that said,